Welcome to Rugby Saturday Southwest, a brand new show here on ProView Networks. I'm your host, Ed Nunez, joined to my left by my co-host, Carl Hawkins. Carl's got an extensive background in rugby, UNM alumni player, also played for many years for the Albuquerque Aardvarks, traveled abroad playing rugby. My other co-host is Aaron Rivera to my right. Aaron played on the 2011 St. Pius Rugby State Championship team. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Good to be here, Ed.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Aaron, we want to talk about some of the games that were at Albuquerque Balloon Fiesta, International Balloon Fiesta last week. By the way, we will be broadcasting games on Comcast Channel 26 and also the Rugby Channel YouTube channel. And, you know, it's been some great contests out there, and you had a chance to have a good look at many of them last week. You called a couple of them.
Absolutely.
And so can you tell us a little bit about what you saw out there? I mean, it's always, I got to say this, as somebody that's new to the game, it's exciting out there. We've seen some good contests the last month. At least I've just been in it watching for that long. You've been involved as a player and now as a commentator, as a broadcaster. So what did you see out there last week?
Well, last week was really interesting. The Colorado Denver East High School came down. So in the earlier youth matches, there was a few. There's an under-15s match. They played against La Cueva Bears, the Albuquerque Eagles. And then after that, we saw University of New Mexico take on ASU. They won that big game. And then the last match was between the Brujos and the Aardvarks, and that was a pretty hard-fought game between two longtime rivals.
You know, I want you to talk about that one a little bit, about the Brujos and the Aardvarks. Carl Hawkins and I covered the Aardvarks game and about a month or about 2 weeks earlier. And that game, the Brujos and the Aardvarks have a very, what I would say, you know, healthy rivalry, cordial rivalry, until sometimes, you know, Carl calls it handbagging out there. There's a couple of handbags thrown out there, and that's what I mean about rugby. It's just a fascinating game. So, can you talk to us about that game, and you know, what kind of intensity did you see out there? Because it always is. That's one thing about rugby. Maybe you can explain that. That gets in a very intense game, and you could be down. We saw this. You can be down 31-6. Make a comeback, just like in football. You know, you can come back and some good strategy out of set pieces, things like that. You can find yourself right back in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we didn't see that between the Brujos and the Aardvarks. Aardvarks came out pretty strong earlier on. They had some players who we haven't seen play for them for a while. I know Josh Aranda, he was actually a coach at UNM for a little bit, helping them out, and he was playing for the Aardvarks. We saw a lot of players come in, and the Aardvarks just kind of dominated early on. They were pretty even in the big groups, but pretty much it was we already knew which direction the game was going early on.
That's something I guess you can always kind of tell early on, but that's the thing. Sometimes it goes in one direction. You know, Carl and I did a game with Northern Colorado and Tarleton State 2 weeks earlier, and it seemed like Northern Colorado dominated the whole first half, and then Tarleton State got it together and really made it 45-35. They scored at the final gun or whistle or whatever you want to call it, and they made it a game. So you never can tell,
No.
you know, with rugby, and I think that's what's, for me, and in learning a new game, that's what's so exciting about it. The scrums, the rucks, the mauls, the lineouts, everything's new to me. So,
Absolutely.
And the tackling, you mentioned some of the tackling. So, Carl, you know, we talked to Aaron a little bit about the games that you were in Athens, Georgia, at the Masters. That had to be a hard trip, Carl.
It was rough.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. But, you know, we've been out there about, you know, at least 4 Saturdays together. And I think, you know, Marty Watts, of course, and Steve Davis have worked very hard to get this all going. You know, Marty, I don't think anybody works harder than Marty Watts and loves rugby more than he does. But we've been out there a couple of Saturdays. And, you know, can you talk about what you've seen? And really probably the development of rugby locally, nationally, because it's a fast-growing sport.
To me, it was just phenomenal to come back. I recently moved back here, to come back and to start participating in this Rugby Saturday stuff and seeing the magnitude of what has happened in terms of the youth and the collegiate and the club rugby all being played on a beautiful facility at the Balloon Park. So it's just a joy, and the type of players that are being developed, both girls and boys, in the youth program coming up, and what it's going to do to the quality of rugby in the city, and the sort of presentation we're going to have nationwide in rugby. The game on, let me make a little comment about the Brujos Aardvark game. That was a very important game for both teams because it was a determination about who was going to get to go to the playoffs. And the Aardvarks did pull it out of the woodworks and throw everything they could at that. And from what I understand, having not seen it, but from the different discussions I've had, the Aardvarks just kind of blew them away with superior back play. And as a result, they are going to be moving into the Arizona Rio Grande Club playoffs, which start next week. So that was a big move for them. And they will be the top seed in the Division II.
Okay, we got about a minute left in the segment, Carl. You want to finish up anything about that? You just mentioned that tournament, and I think that's important to note.
The playoffs this year are going to be in Albuquerque at the Balloon Fiesta. The Northern Arizona and Phoenix Rugby Club are going to be playing in Division III, and the Brujos and the Las Cruces Horny Toads are going to be representing the Rio Grande Union in that tournament. Brujos being the first seed and the Horny Toads being the second seed. And then in Division II, which is where the Aardvarks are going to be playing, there's a to-be-determined match this weekend between Fort Bliss and Santa Fe. And if Fort Bliss owns their destiny, if they can beat Santa Fe, they get to go into the playoffs. And they'll be facing the number 1 and number 2 seeds, the Aardvarks and Fort Bliss if they win, or El Paso if Fort Bliss loses. Tempe and Red Mountain, both of them very good teams. Tempe the favorite. The interesting thing about the playoffs is that the winning teams move forward into the Sweet 16 to the national championships, which is everybody's goal in rugby, is to get into the Sweet 16 and have an opportunity to play
for that championship,
for the national championship. Right. And the Aardvarks, I think, have gone the furthest in the New Mexico club arena, making it to the finals in Glendale, 4 years ago, I think.
Okay, all right. Well, that'll be it for this segment. We'll be back with more Rugby Saturday Southwest. First, take a look at Dave and Buster's top 10 plays of the week.
Tired of boring old video games? Then follow Jax to Cool Springs Trampoline Park. Cool Springs is 18,000 square feet of locally owned family fun and fitness. Centrally located for any birthday celebration or special events, Cool Springs has it all. Dodgeball, foam pits, interactive digital games, and wall-to-wall trampolines where people can jump, bounce, and fly around. Open 7 days a week. Cool Springs is the best way to exercise and have fun. Call us at 505-345-JUMP or visit us online at coolsprings.com.
Come check out the brand new Library Bar and Grill. It's the best place to bring your family to catch all the action from high school, college, and professional sports. Great drinks, great food, and 40 HD TVs, so you don't miss anything. Youth athletes, bring your sports jersey and eat free on the kids menu. Come visit us, 5001 San Mateo, just north of Montgomery.
Wondering if you can afford the ring of her dreams? At Crown Jewels & Coin, we actually double the diamond for what you would pay at a chain store. Trade in your old jewelry towards GIA certified diamonds. Choose from a large selection of settings featuring Veragio. We can customize a design and offer no credit check 2-year interest-free financing. Get more than you ever thought possible here at Albuquerque's family jeweler for over 50 years. Crown Jewels & Coin, for all you treasure. 3248 San Mateo at Kruger's Corner.
Streamline Swimming is New Mexico's premier swim store featuring the latest in training equipment and competitive swimming apparel. Whether you're looking for swimwear to lounge by the pool or something more professional, Streamline has it. With main brands such as Speedo, Nike, TYR, and Dolphin, you can be sure to find what you are looking for. And even if swimming is not your thing, Streamline provides uniforms for any sport you need. With no job too small and no setup fees, you can outfit your team with the best screen-printed and embroidery design uniforms. And with a friendly staff on site, our employees are always willing to help. Come and visit Streamline Swim Store and Streamline Athletics. Call us at 505-503-7460 or visit us at 6901 Gruber Avenue, Northeast.
Welcome back to Rugby Saturday Southwest. I'm your host, Ed Nunez, joined by my co-host to my right, Aaron Rivera. Also being joined now by Jamie Schwabach. Jamie is the New Mexico Executive Director of Youth Rugby here in the state of New Mexico. Jamie, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Thank you so much. Doing great. Thank you, sir.
Good. Well, you mentioned, again, the development of rugby, I think, is one of the fastest developing sports in the world, not just the United States, right? I believe that's true.
Correct.
And I think that always fascinates me because, again, I'm still learning the game. There's so much more. I have to learn so much about it. But I think it's a great game. I really do. And I think with people kind of moving away from tackle football for a number of different reasons, the concussions and things like that, rugby might be an outlet that people start. People will say, well, you're tackling there too, but it's just a game of strategy. I mentioned that to Carl Hawkins and Aaron Rivera. Rucks, scrums, mauls, lineouts. The whole thing fascinates me, man. The ball, the shape of the ball, the conversions from different angles. So American football stole a lot of that. They did, and when I see all the touchdowns, Marty Watts always reminds me of where those things came from. But you're here to talk about the development of youth rugby, and you're the executive director. We mentioned that. Give us a little bit of background. You mentioned you played in Mexico State.
I did. I played for New Mexico State back in the late 90s and early 2000s, and I also played for the club side team here, the Albuquerque Atomic Sisters. And I've been involved with youth rugby here in New Mexico for about the last 4 to 5 years. And on the youth side across the United States, it's the way we're going to get better national players, is by increasing our youth play, all the way from age 7 and up, and you're seeing that across the United States. Here in New Mexico, we've got more than 450 high school players, more than 120 youth players. So we're seeing it grow, and we're seeing a better level of player come out into the high school, into the college, and into the club side.
That's all key, and my co-host Aaron Rivera has some questions for you.
Awesome.
So we talk a lot about high school ball a lot, but are we seeing a lot more competitiveness growing in those younger divisions, where the kids are just learning how to tackle, where they're learning how to ruck and recycle the ball?
You're seeing a lot more competitive nature. Currently in New Mexico, we have a youth league. It's the Albuquerque Youth Rugby United, and that's here in Albuquerque. There's about 120 kids playing, and we're working on getting more leagues in Santa Fe, Las Cruces, and Farmington started hopefully in the fall. And you are seeing these kids learn how to tackle at the U13 level, at the U15 level. And as Ed had mentioned, we're really focused on safety. So we're looking at how you're having safe tackles, how to tackle appropriately to make sure we don't have those concussions, to make sure we have no injuries.
Absolutely. And right now we're seeing some clips from a game between the Rio Rancho Royals and Las Lunases Las Gitanas. One thing we see a lot this year is different types of play. We see some 15s play, some 10s play, some 7s play. Talk a little bit about why we're seeing all these different styles of play.
Our goal with New Mexico Youth Rugby is to get kids playing rugby. So on our girls' side, to have more teams and a tougher competition, we've looked at the sevens focus. We can have more teams. On the boys' side, we do have a 15s and a 10 side, and it's just so we have more teams, more competition, more kids playing. The more time kids get to play in the field, the better athletes they'll become.
Absolutely. And another thing that we've noticed is, or we've seen, is West Texas teams playing here. El Paso's got 2 teams that have come out to play here in New Mexico, both in Las Cruces and here in Albuquerque. What spurred the decision to bring those El Paso teams into the fold?
Well, as everybody knows, West Texas is so far from anything. They're an hour drive from Las Cruces, so then these guys can play. If they were playing in all the Texas, they'd be about an 8-hour drive just for competition.
Oof. That's definitely a long drive, and just to kind of wrap it up, the season's got a couple more weeks left. Are there any games before the playoffs that you're really excited to see?
You know, on the 23rd, we have a lot of competitive brackets from some teams who have not lost any games, and it's going to be some really trying challenges on the 23rd at Balloon Fiesta Park here in Albuquerque.
You know, I want to ask you some more questions because we're watching these great highlights and great film clips. And I think also the development of rugby, we mentioned locally, worldwide in the United States, it's really taken off. But I think the other thing too, Jamie, is getting more females involved in athletics and something positive.
Mm-hmm.
I always say that, you know, when I work out, I always want more female. We need more females in the gym. You know, we need that. And I think you know, sometimes, but women's athletics, I think you'd agree. In the last 25 years, women's basketball, everything has gotten better on the women's side. Volleyball, softball.
Right.
Women are fantastic athletes, and sometimes I think people don't look at that. They think, you know, they still pigeonhole things in a corner. Talk about some of the athleticism you see out there, and you know, I'm sure you do.
Right.
I saw it on the men's side, but talk about the speed and some of the things that you see, and what we're trying to develop here on the local level to compete at the national level. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, definitely. You know, on the local level with our youth and our high school athletes, you're seeing women who are making decisions on the fields. And that's the beauty of rugby. It's one of the best sports for a young lady to play because those things that they learn in a competitive game that's physical, and they get to do the exact same game that a boy does, that you're seeing it progress into their life. And on the national level, you do look at Jillian Potter, who played for UNM. She's actually on the national U.S. sevens team and is an Olympic hopeful. And the Olympics this year is going to be the first year where the sevens are going to be featured, first time in about 100 years.
Okay, wow.
So that's a huge thing. You know, she is from Texas, played in Albuquerque on that level for university, and now she's going to be hopefully representing the United States. And that's going to be spectacular to watch on the women's side.
So I think, again, there's so many reasons to watch more of rugby, and it's a fast-growing sport, especially on the, I just love watching competition at any level. I don't care what it is, table tennis, it could be anything. I just love competition. Carrier, we've got about a minute left in this segment. Do you have one more question for Jamie?
No, but just to kind of tie into what Jamie was talking about, the UNM Lady Lobos have actually been very competitive here in the last 5-6 years. They've been going to the Sweet 16 pretty much every single year in the last 5. So, you know, we're seeing the UNM Lady Lobos definitely competing at a level that's on par with all the rest of the national teams.
I think that's always good to see someone. We always wanted the Lobos. I'm a Lobo man, you know, and I think we all want the best. I don't care if it's, I don't care what it is, cross country skiing, you know, track. We want the best, and so that they're competing on that level, I think, is also very good as well.
It is. It's amazing. We do have a lot of our high school players that played through our high school program who are now playing for the Lobos right now, which is exceptional as well.
So that's what you want to keep seeing at the youth level. Keep them, you know, keep them going into high school. Things get more organized, more competitive. Natural progression.
Correct.
They start playing for UNM, getting scholarship offers to other schools. You know, hopefully it's here, but it all progresses forward.
Correct.
Jamie Schwayback, New Mexico Athletic, the Executive Director of Youth Rugby here in the state of New Mexico. Thanks so much for being our guest.
Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. We'll be back with more of Rugby Saturday Southwest after these messages.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walk up to the cashier, order up a root beer and a #1. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
Don't sacrifice quality or flavor when you're in a hurry. Golden Pride delivers the best tasting barbecue chicken and ribs with the fastest drive-thru in the whole city. Plus, Albuquerque Magazine has awarded Golden Pride for having the best tasting breakfast burrito in town. For a great meal without the wait, come see us at any one of our 4 locations or visit us online at goldenprideabq.com. Golden Pride, home of Albuquerque's #1 breakfast burrito.
Tired of looking at your old, worn-out kitchen cabinets and furniture? Minuteman Refinishing, Albuquerque, owned and operated for over 32 years, is now Minuteman Design Center. J.C. Lopez and his sons, Jeremy and J.D., and their group of experienced refinishing professionals bring new life to Albuquerque kitchens and furniture at a fraction of the replacement cost. They also specialize in custom cabinets, granite, and tile work. Call them today for a free estimate or visit their photo gallery at MinutemanDesignCenter.com.
Welcome back to Rugby Saturday Southwest. I'm your host, Ed Nunez. To my left is Carl Hawkins, our co-host. We're now joined by University of New Mexico men's rugby coach, Tom Goslow. Coach, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Coach, big victory last week, 67-19 over Arizona State University. And, you mentioned the development of your program. We've been talking about that. It's a work in progress, no doubt about it. But you want to talk about that. It's a big win. We talked about it a little bit before we got on. And it's definitely a big win for the program. I know you talked about it earlier. We covered a couple of games out there at Balloon Fiesta Park. And it's a work, like we mentioned, it's a work in progress. Players, experience, scrums, rucks, mauls, lineouts, the whole thing. You want to talk to a little bit about that victory?
Yeah, that was a really important victory for the program in general as we go about rebuilding it. When myself and my assistant coaches came in last August and took over the program, at that point, UNM had been through many coaches over the last 4 or 5 years, and basically the whole program was in a state of turmoil. And so when we set out rebuilding that program, one of our major objectives was to beat a D1 opponent, a Division I opponent. So coming into this semester, Arizona State was one of those potential opponents, Utah, Air Force, and it came down to this Saturday. Arizona was the last opportunity for us to go out on the pitch and do that, and the guys did it successfully. It was a 67-19 result, which was even better than we expected when they went out there.
You talk about, again, we were looking at some game footage from that, but you talk about the development and the coaching, and the carousel has turned around quite a bit. What's the key going forward to keeping this momentum going? Because you mentioned that it's kind of hard to start over and hit the reset button.
Yeah.
As the head coach now, what's your goals and your objectives in keeping this ship going in the right direction?
I think we're fortunate that our team is very young, actually. More than 2/3 of the team are freshmen and sophomores. And so that really is an excellent foundation for us to go forward on. Those young players are really, really committed. They understand the program and they understand what we're trying to build. And they've been fully dedicated and fully committed to it since we started. And I've watched these guys progress from players that could barely handle a ball to guys who could just, they were rucking machines against Arizona State. They absolutely dominated the ball. They controlled all aspects of the game, really controlled the flow. Their backline play and their support of each other was tremendous. So looking forward, we have such a great group of young guys that'll all be coming back. Every single one of them is super excited about helping build this program and where they can go and what they can do with UNM Rugby right now.
Coach, what percentage of the team are freshmen and sophomores?
It's more than 2/3 of the team is freshmen and sophomores. It's a really young team.
That's the biggest challenge in college rugby.
Really young
the
team.
Turnover is just amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And Carl, one of the things I wanted to ask you, we had a chance to watch UNM about a month and a half ago play the University of Utah, and you mentioned you and I talked about that too, where UNM was, where UNM is going. In your opinion, where they at now? So this is a big victory against Arizona State. It's a big victory.
This is a big victory any season, and in a turnaround season, it's really important because it creates momentum for you. One of the things that Tom and I were talking about yesterday in sort of the preamble for this is that when you and I watched that game and when they were playing the University of Utah, which is top 5 teams in the country, if I'm not mistaken, we were really impressed with, after they got behind against a very experienced and a very powerful team, they never gave up. They had that spirit that you knew that given some time and some coaching, that they would turn it all around and they would they would be really competitive. And the rate at which that change has occurred is phenomenal, and I congratulate you for that.
Yeah, thank you. I think that that's one of the standout features of all the character, the character of all these young men on this team is that they're extremely resilient. I can't remember, I've been coaching rugby for a long time, to have such a group like that where so many players are so committed and so resilient like that. And it's something that every single one of our opponents have noticed. Head coach after head coach of every D1A opponent that we've played last fall and at this spring always comes up and says, your guys never give up. They never quit. Even when we're winning, they make our guys earn everything that they get out there right to the very last minute. And that's something that we're really proud of. And again, I think it's an awesome trait that they have, and it's going to really help as we build this program going forward.
The fitness of your team, I thought.
They work hard at practice. They work really hard.
That's the difference in an 80-minute game, fitness.
I think one of the things I wanted to ask you is for the average person. Now, I'm beginning to learn a lot more about rugby, but there's a lot of people that don't know. It's an amazing game. It really is. A lot of strategy. Carl's taught me so much just in our brief broadcast that we've done together. But talk about it. You talk about practice, and Carl mentioned conditioning. For the person that doesn't know, the average person that doesn't know, what you do in practice, can you explain that as far, Carl mentioned conditioning. You mentioned it's a passing backward, can't pass it forward. There's so many things that are interesting about that game, the tries, the conversions, the touch, the tries. Everything's so interesting about that game once you start learning about it. Can you explain to the average fan out there what you're working on in practice to develop the program that you want going forward?
Yeah, we're constantly, working on their core skill set, which is passing, running, tackling, rucking, which is recycling the ball back into play. But for your average person out there, you have to think that rugby brings in the type of cardio that you would see in soccer players, that ability to continuously run for 80 minutes at full pace, alternating between a sprint and a walk and a stop and a sprint. So you have that kind of cardio. Plus you have the physicality of like football. So I always describe rugby to people who are trying to learn the game is that imagine sprinting from one wrestling match to another wrestling match for 80 minutes straight. That's the type of fitness that is required in rugby. And so in practice, we train that way. One of our coaching philosophies is we just maintain constant pace at training for 2.5 hours. We don't take too many breaks. We don't spend a lot of time getting chatty with the players. We want them constantly engaged and constantly working so that it mimics more what they would experience on a pitch.
We're talking to University of New Mexico men's rugby coach Tom Goslow. Got about a minute left in this segment. Carl, you have any more questions for Coach Goslow?
I think, Coach, tell us about what's up next for you. It's kind of interesting, right? They have a collegiate championship coming up this weekend?
On Saturday, we have the Rio Grande Collegiate Championships. This is the last little piece of our puzzle as we go about setting this foundation for rebuilding the program this year. One was getting that D1A win against Arizona State, and now we have the Rio Grande Championships where we'll play against New Mexico State, New Mexico Tech, and UTEP. And this is, all the colleges that are here along the Rio Grande play this playoff every spring.
And who's the favorite?
We are the favorite right now, which is good going in, but the reigning champion is Tech.
Is that right?
So
Texas Tech?
New Mexico Tech.
New Mexico Tech.
So I'm anticipating that it's probably going to be a UNM Tech final.
So you're going
though
head-to-head with
UTEP
Coach
is coming
Weedle.
up well these days, so it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out on Saturday.
Carl, got anything? We've got about 10 seconds left. Anything left to add about this?
The other thing about the collegiate stuff that we should note is that our sort of sister club out in Oklahoma, the University of Oklahoma, they played a big match last weekend against Army, and unfortunately they came up short 55-10. But they are in the National Sevens tournament, and I believe that begins in a week or so, and they have a good opportunity to have a big showing there. That's the college sevens championship.
Okay, I appreciate that. I want to thank UNM men's rugby coach Tom Goslow for joining us.
Thank you.
Wish you
Thanks
best
for
of luck.
having
Your
me.
nice tie, by the way. Wish you best of luck going forward. We'll be back with more of Rugby Saturday Southwest after these messages.